A secret hidden among papers changed the fate of a simple maid. An almost irreversible mistake threatened a massive project. A furious rival was ready to do anything to protect her reputation. When the truth came out, no one imagined that the smallest piece would change the whole game. Before you dive into this shocking story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Emily adjusted her grey uniform for the third time before ringing the bell of the imposing Harrington mansion. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the small bag with her personal belongings. At 23, after so much effort to secure the position, she couldn't let nerves ruin her first day of work. The wrought iron gate opened with a soft hum, and a middle-aged woman in a uniform similar to hers gestured for her to enter. "Welcome to the Harrington mansion. I'm Margaret, the housekeeper. You must be Emily, right?" As they crossed the main garden, Emily couldn't contain her admiration for the underutilized space. Her eyes scanned the areas that could host stunning flower beds, instantly spotting the wasted potential of the grounds. It was a habit she couldn't control, the result of years studying landscaping in her spare time. "The garden used to be more beautiful," Margaret remarked, misinterpreting Emily's attentive gaze, "but ever since the old gardener retired, no one has managed to maintain the standard the family expects." Upon entering the mansion, Emily was greeted by an atmosphere that blended luxury and tradition. Century-old crystal shared space with modern art, creating a unique ambience that reflected the different generations of the Harrington family. Margaret led her through hallways adorned with family portraits, detailing her future responsibilities. "You'll be responsible for the east wing of the mansion, including the library and guest rooms. Everything must remain impeccable, especially now that the young lady is returning from New York," Margaret explained, her voice tinged with anxiety. "And there's one very important rule. Mr. Edward Harrington's office is strictly off-limits. Only he and the housekeeper are permitted to enter." Emily absorbed every word as they climbed the main staircase. Suddenly, the sound of laughter echoed down the hall, and a young man appeared, taking the steps two at a time. He nearly collided with them, stopping abruptly with a charming grin. "Whoops! Sorry, ladies," he exclaimed, running a hand through his dark hair in a carefree gesture. "You must be the new hire. I'm Nathan Harrington, the troublemaker of the house." He introduced himself with a playful wink. Margaret cleared her throat discreetly. "Mr. Nathan, this is Emily. She started today." Nathan's gaze lingered on Emily's a moment too long, making her blush slightly. "Welcome to our home, Emily. I hope you like it here, despite my mother's rules." As if summoned by her son's words, Eleanor Harrington appeared at the top of the stairs. Tall, elegant, and with a piercing gaze, she exuded a natural authority that made Emily instinctively straighten her posture. "Nathan, shouldn't you be preparing for your meeting with your father?" Eleanor questioned, descending the steps gracefully. Her heels echoed on the marble like a reminder of her commanding presence. "I was just on my way, Mother," Nathan replied, though his casual tone remained. "I only stopped to welcome our new colleague." Eleanor turned her attention to Emily, scrutinizing her with a critical gaze that seemed to catalogue every detail of her appearance. "I hope you understand the importance of discretion and excellence in our home, Emily. Did Margaret already explain our rules to you?" "Yes, ma'am," Emily answered firmly, determined not to be intimidated. "You can trust my professionalism." A thin, calculated smile appeared on Eleanor's lips. "Good. Margaret, please finish showing Emily the facilities. And Nathan, your father is waiting." As Eleanor walked away and Nathan descended the stairs, Emily realized there was much more to this family than met the eye. The dynamic between mother and son, the atmosphere of strict rules contrasting with Nathan's cheerfulness, everything hinted at layers of complexity she didn't yet understand. Margaret continued the tour, showing Emily her room in the staff quarters, a small but comfortable space with a window offering a privileged view of the back garden. "You'll have Sundays off," Margaret explained. "As for the rest of the routine, I'll teach you everything gradually. The important thing is to keep your eyes open and your mouth shut, understand?" Emily nodded, storing her few clothes in the closet, while absorbing the housekeeper's veiled advice. Through the window, she gazed once more at the garden, imagining the possibilities it offered. Little did she know that her secret knowledge of landscaping would prove far more relevant than she could have guessed. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of instructions, introductions to the other staff, and learning the mansion's peculiarities. Emily met Agnes, the cook who reigned supreme in her domain, and George, the driver, who seemed to know all the family's secrets, though he never shared them. That night, lying in her new bed, Emily reflected on her first day. Impressions. Nathan's warm smile stood in stark contrast to Eleanor's icy stare in her memories. The mystery of Mr. Edward's forbidden office piqued her curiosity, as did the mention of the daughter studying in New York. As sleep overtook her, Emily couldn't have imagined how drastically her life was about to change. Her self-taught knowledge of landscaping, her dedication to her work, and an unexpected encounter with certain documents would completely alter her path in that house. But for now, she was simply the new employee, trying to find her place in a world very different from her own. Emily's first week at the Harrington mansion passed quickly, settling into a routine she was beginning to master. Her mornings were dedicated to meticulously cleaning the library, a task she secretly adored, as it allowed her to admire the countless books on architecture and landscaping lining the shelves. During the afternoons, she busied herself with the guest rooms and occasionally helped with the general upkeep of the house. That particular morning, however, the mansion buzzed with a different energy. Sophia Harrington, the daughter who studied in New York, was returning home. The staff rushed back and forth, ensuring everything was perfect for her arrival. "Emily," Margaret's voice echoed down the hallway. "I need you to give Sophia's room special attention. She arrives in 2 hours and Mrs. Eleanor wants everything flawless." As she tidied the luxurious bedroom, Emily glanced at the photographs scattered across the furniture. In one, an elegant young woman smiled beside Nathan in front of the Statue of Liberty. The siblings shared the same striking green eyes, a clear inheritance from Eleanor. Striking how alike they look, isn't it? Emily startled at Nathan's voice by the door. He leaned against the frame, dressed in a navy blue suit that made him even more handsome. "Sorry, Mr. Nathan, I was just finishing up," she replied, embarrassed at being caught studying the photos. "Please, no mister," he smiled, stepping into the room. "We're practically the same age, and don't be shy. Everyone's curious about Sophia. She has that effect on people." Before Emily could respond, commotion erupted downstairs. "She's here!" Nathan exclaimed, his face lighting up with genuine joy. "Come, you have to meet my sister." Emily hesitated, aware of her place as staff, but Nathan had already left, leaving her no choice but to follow. In the main hall, Sophia Harrington embraced her parents, while a small crowd of Louis Vuitton suitcases waited to be carried upstairs. "Little sis." Nathan crossed the room in long strides, sweeping his sister into a tight hug that lifted her off the ground. "Nate, you goof!" Sophia laughed, returning the embrace with equal enthusiasm. "I missed you so much." Emily watched the scene discreetly, noting how Sophia seemed to bring light into the mansion's usually austere atmosphere. Even Eleanor wore a genuine smile, something Emily had never seen before. "And who are you?" Emily noticed Sophia looking at her curiously. "I'm Emily, ma'am. I started working here a week ago." "Please, just call me Sophia," she replied with a warm smile. "New York taught me that all these formalities are a bit excessive." "Sophia," Eleanor interjected with a warning tone. "Let's keep the family traditions, shall we? Emily, please help George with the bags." As she climbed the stairs carrying one of the suitcases, Emily couldn't help but overhear the conversation that followed in the hallway. "By the way," Sophia remarked, "I ran into Victoria in New York last month. She mentioned she's returning to America for an important project." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Emily noticed Nathan visibly tensing his shoulders. "Victoria Blackwood?" Eleanor asked, her voice taking on an interested tone. "The Blackwood's daughter, the one who specialized in landscape design." "Exactly," Sophia confirmed. "In fact, she should be arriving this week. She said she had a proposal to present to Dad." Emily, who was now at the top of the stairs, saw Mr. Edward finally speak up. It would be interesting to breathe new life into the garden. It's been needing a renovation. "I don't think that's a good idea," Nathan commented, his voice losing the cheerful tone from moments before. "Why not, son?" Eleanor questioned. "Victoria is a respected professional, and her family has been our friends for years. Besides, you two always got along so well." Emily continued on her way to Sophia's room, but her mind raced as she processed the information. There was clearly an untold story there, especially considering Nathan's reaction to the mention of Victoria's name. The following days brought a new dynamic to the mansion. Sophia carried with her an air of modernity and freshness that contrasted with the house's traditional atmosphere. She often chatted with Emily during her chores, sharing stories about New York and displaying a simplicity that was surprising. "You know, Emily," Sophia remarked one morning as she watched her organize her books, "sometimes I think this house needs more life, more color, more movement." The garden. "It has so much potential," Emily replied before she could stop herself, immediately biting her lip at her own indiscretion. Sophia leaned in with interest. "Do you know about gardens?" "A little," Emily admitted hesitantly. "I study on my own in my free time." "Fascinating," Sophia exclaimed. "Perhaps you could give some suggestions when Victoria arrives. She'd love to have some local input." Emily smiled politely, but her heart raced. Something told her Victoria Blackwood's arrival would significantly change the dynamics of the Harrington mansion. The next morning, while cleaning the library, Emily found Nathan lost in thought, staring out the window overlooking the garden. "Sorry, Nathan, I'll come back later." "No, stay," he said, turning to her with a melancholic smile. "Sometimes it's nice to have company, even if it's silent." For a few minutes they remained in comfortable silence until the sound of an arriving car broke the moment. Emily watched as Nathan's expression shifted subtly at the sight of an elegant woman stepping out of a black Mercedes. "Victoria's here," he murmured, more to himself than to Emily. And in that moment, watching the newcomer stride through the garden with the confidence of someone who knew the path well, Emily was certain her life at the Harrington mansion was about to become much more complicated. Victoria Blackwood was exactly as Emily had imagined, sophisticated, elegant, and commanding attention effortlessly. Her high heels echoed through the mansion's halls as if announcing her arrival, and her French perfume left a lingering trail long after she passed. "The garden is just as I remember," Victoria remarked during breakfast with the Harrington family, which Emily discreetly served. "A rough diamond waiting to be polished." Eleanor sipped her tea with evident approval. "Darling, I can't wait to see your designs. Your reputation in New York is impressive." "Actually," Victoria began, casting a fleeting glance at Nathan, who kept his eyes fixed on his coffee, "I already have some preliminary ideas. I was thinking of a contemporary Japanese concept, something that would bring harmony and modernity to the space." "Japanese?" Nathan finally spoke up, his voice laced with skepticism. "In our tropical climate." "Concepts can be adapted, Nathan," Victoria replied with a condescending smile. "The point is to create something unique, something that reflects both the Harrington family's tradition and their vision for the future." Emily, who was quietly arranging the coffee table, couldn't help but notice some obvious flaws in the concept. Her years of self-taught studies in landscaping screamed that a traditional Japanese garden would require very specific soil and drainage conditions that the property didn't naturally offer. "I'll present the full project in a few days," Victoria continued. "In fact, Edward, I'll need access to your office to review the original land surveys." The family patriarch nodded. "Margaret will arrange that for you." In the days that followed, Victoria became a constant presence at the mansion. Emily watched her taking notes in the garden, always accompanied by a state-of-the-art iPad, where she sketched her designs. On a few occasions, Nathan joined her, and Emily couldn't ignore the underlying tension between them. "You still have that awful habit of doubting my abilities," Victoria remarked to Nathan during one of these moments, her voice carrying to Emily as she pruned some nearby plants. "It's not about doubting, Vicky," Nathan replied, using a nickname that sounded far too familiar. "It's about making the right choices." "Like you did," she shot back with a bitter edge before walking away. One afternoon, As Emily cleaned the hallway near Mr. Edward's office, she noticed some papers fallen near the door. They were Victoria's preliminary project sketches, likely dropped by accident. As she picked them up, her trained eyes immediately spotted serious issues. The proposed drainage system was completely inadequate for the area's rainfall. The chosen plant species would require soil that would need extensive modification, an expensive and potentially harmful process for the local ecosystem. Worse, the placement of certain structures would compromise the mansion's historical foundations. Emily bit her lip, torn between simply returning the papers and her technical knowledge screaming about the glaring mistakes. After a moment's hesitation, she grabbed her personal notebook and began jotting down detailed notes, including corrections, that would preserve the project's essence while making it feasible. What are you doing? Sophia's voice startled her. Emily hadn't heard her approach. "I'd found these papers on the floor," she explained, her face burning. "They're from Mrs. Victoria's project." Sophia stepped closer, curious. "And you were correcting them?" "Not exactly," Emily tried to explain, but Sophia had already picked up her notes and was examining them with interest. "This is impressive," Sophia murmured, her eyes scanning Emily's technical observations. "You really know your stuff." "Please don't mention this to anyone," Emily pleaded, distressed. "I shouldn't have gotten involved." Sophia studied her for a moment, an enigmatic smile on her lips. "You know, Emily, sometimes fate puts the right people in the right places, even if they don't realize it at first." Before Emily could respond, they heard footsteps approaching. It was Victoria, heading toward the office. "Sophia, darling," she exclaimed, kissing the air near the young Harrington's cheeks. Her eyes fell on Emily and the papers in her hands. "What do we have here?" "Just some documents that needed organizing," Sophia replied smoothly, taking the blueprints from Emily's hands. "Emily was helping me put them away." Victoria nodded, absently, but her gaze lingered on Emily a moment longer than necessary. "Of course, well, I need to go over some details with your father. The final project presentation is coming up soon." When Victoria entered the office, Sophia turned back to Emily. "I'll keep your notes safe. Something tells me they'll still be very useful." Emily watched Sophia walk away, her heart racing. She had the feeling she'd just crossed an invisible line, and there was no going back. What she didn't know was that her technical observations were about to set off a chain of events that would completely change her life at the Harrington mansion. The days that followed were marked by growing tension in the Harrington mansion. Emily felt the weight of the secret she shared with Sophia, watching carefully the interactions between Victoria and the family. Nathan, in particular, seemed increasingly restless, alternating between long periods of isolation in his room and heated arguments with Victoria in the garden. One particularly hot afternoon, Emily was cleaning the library windows when she heard raised voices coming from Mr. Edward's office. She immediately recognized the tones of Victoria and Nathan. "You can't go through with this project, Vicky." Nathan's voice was urgent. "There are serious issues you're ignoring." "Issues? The only issue here is you and your inability to support me," Victoria retorted, her voice trembling with anger. "It's always been like this, hasn't it, since New York?" "Don't mix things up," Nathan interrupted. "This is about the garden, about the safety of my family's property." "Your family?" Victoria laughed humorlessly. "Funny how you only remember that when it suits you." The door swung open abruptly, and Victoria hurried out, nearly colliding with Emily. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Emily saw a mix of fury and hurt in that gaze. Nathan appeared right after, running his hand through his hair in frustration. When he saw Emily, he stopped, momentarily taken aback. "Emily," he began, his voice softer. "How long have you been there?" "I just arrived to clean the windows, sir," she replied, trying to sound as natural as possible. Nathan studied her for a moment, as if deciding whether to believe her. "Right. Well, I think we all need some fresh air." He walked away toward the garden, leaving Emily with the feeling that there was much more to that story than met the eye. Later that day, while helping Agnes in the kitchen, Emily overheard chatter among the staff. Apparently, Mr. Edward had scheduled an important meeting for the final presentation of Victoria's project, and all the key family members would be present. They say they're even bringing in outside experts to evaluate the project. George, the driver, remarked over coffee. Serious business. Emily felt her stomach drop. Her notes, the ones Sophia had kept, could be the difference between the project's success and failure. But she was just a maid. How could she interfere in something so important? On the morning of the meeting, the mansion was in a frenzy. Staff rushed back and forth, preparing the conference room, while Victoria arrived loaded with panels and models. Emily was busy polishing the silverware when Sophia discreetly approached her. "Emily, I need you to do something for me," she whispered, handing her an envelope. "Put this in my father's office before the meeting starts." Glancing around, to make sure no one was watching, Emily took the envelope with trembling hands. "What is this?" "The chance to do the right thing," Sophia replied enigmatically before walking away. With her heart racing, Emily found an opportunity to enter Mr. Edwards' office minutes before the meeting began. She placed the envelope on the desk right in plain view and quickly left. The meeting lasted for hours. Outside the conference room, employees took turns trying to catch fragments of the discussion. Emily, however, kept her distance, a mix of anxiety and guilt consuming her from within. When the doors finally opened, the expressions on the participants' faces said it all. Victoria was the first to leave, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. She walked past everyone without a word, her heels echoing down the hallway like a harbinger of a storm. Nathan came next, looking both relieved and worried. His eyes met Emily's for a brief moment, and she could have sworn she saw a flicker of gratitude in his gaze. Mr. Edward was the last to exit, his face as impassive as ever. "Margaret," he called to the housekeeper, "please gather all the staff in the main hall in 15 minutes. We have an announcement to make." The buzz among the employees was intense as they assembled. Theories and speculations flew from mouth to mouth. Emily stayed quiet, her stomach churning with nerves. When the Harrington family entered the hall, an expectant silence fell over everyone. Mr. Edward cleared his throat before beginning. "Tactum, you may know we were evaluating a renovation project for our garden. However, thanks to an unexpected and welcome intervention, we discovered critical flaws in that project that could have caused irreparable damage to our property." He paused, his eyes scanning the room. "Which brings me to the reason for this announcement. It seems we have among us someone with extraordinary talent for landscape design, someone who had the courage and integrity to point out these errors, albeit anonymously." Emily's heart felt like it might leap out of her mouth. She could feel Sophia's gaze on her, encouraging. "Emily," Mr. Edward called, turning every eye toward her, "would you care to explain how you acquired this knowledge in landscaping?" For a moment, Emily froze. Then, gathering all her courage, she took a step forward. "Sir, I've always been passionate about gardens and landscaping. Over the past few years, I've dedicated every free moment to studying on my own, through books and online courses." A murmur of surprise swept through the room. Eleanor Harrington raised an eyebrow, clearly re-evaluating the young maid. "Well, Mr. Edward continued, a faint smile on his lips, "it seems your self-taught knowledge has saved us from a great mistake. I'd like to offer you the opportunity to lead the renovation project for our garden." The shock in the room was palpable. Emily felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet. I don't know what to say, sir." "Say you accept," Nathan interjected, grinning openly. "You deserve this chance." As the reality of the situation began to sink in, Emily realized her life had irrevocably changed. The path ahead was full of challenges. Victoria's reaction, the Harrington family's expectations, her own inexperience with projects of this magnitude. But for the first time, she felt she was exactly where she belonged. "I accept," she finally said, her voice growing steadier. "And I promise to do my best to create a garden that will be the pride of this house." As the staff applauded and the Harrington family approached to congratulate her, Emily caught Sophia's gaze. The young Harrington smiled and discreetly winked as if to say, "I knew you could do it." What none of them knew was that this decision would set off a chain of events that would test not only Emily's skills, but also the bonds of the Harrington family and the long-buried secrets at the heart of that mansion. The weeks following Emily's surprising promotion were a whirlwind of emotions and challenges. The Harrington mansion, once a maze of rigid rules and hierarchies, became her testing ground and place of discovery. Early in the morning, Emily found herself in Mr. Edwards' office, once a forbidden space, now her new workspace. The dark, wood-paneled walls seemed to hold centuries of the family's secrets. On the imposing mahogany desk, plants and sketches were spread out, silent witnesses to her long nights of study and planning. "So, Emily," Mr. Edwards' voice brought her back to the present, "how are you feeling about the project?" She took a deep breath before answering. "It's challenging, sir, but I'm excited about the possibilities." Edward smiled, a rare gesture that softened his usually stern features. "Good. Remember, this garden isn't just a green space. It's the Harrington family legacy. Every plant, every path tells a part of our story." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I understand, sir. I promise to honor that history in every detail of the project." As she worked on the plans for the new garden, Emily couldn't help but notice the subtle shifts in the mansion's dynamics. The other staff, once her colleagues, now treated her with a mix of respect and curiosity. Margaret, the housekeeper, seemed especially uneasy about Emily's new position. "Remember who you are and where you came from," Margaret remarked. One morning, as Emily poured herself coffee in the kitchen, the tone wasn't unkind, but it carried a veiled warning. Nathan, on the other hand, had become an enthusiastic supporter. He often appeared in the office, offering ideas and sometimes just silent company as she worked. "You know," he commented, one sunny afternoon as they walked through the garden taking notes, "I always knew this place had potential. Just needed the right eyes to see it." Emily blushed at the compliment, but before she could respond, they were interrupted by Eleanor Harrington. "Nathan, darling," she called, her honeyed voice contrasting with her piercing gaze, "I need to speak with you about Saturday's dinner. The Blackwoods have confirmed their attendance." Nathan's smile visibly faded. "Mother, you know this isn't a good idea." "Nonsense," Eleanor cut in. "It's time to leave the past behind. Victoria will understand that business is business." As mother and son walked away, engaged in a hushed argument, Emily couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. The name Blackwood carried a weight she didn't yet fully understand. On the Friday before the dinner, Emily was deep in irrigation, calculations when Sophia walked into the office carrying a box. "Hey, head gardener," she teased. "Brought something that might interest you." Inside the box was an old photo album. The images depicted the mansion's garden in different eras, showing its evolution over the decades. "This is amazing, Sophia," Emily exclaimed, flipping through the pages with reverence. "I thought it might inspire you." Sophia smiled, but there was a shadow in her eyes. "Emily, about tomorrow's dinner. I think you should be there." Emily looked up, surprised. "Me? But it's a dinner for the family and the Blackwoods. That wouldn't be appropriate." "You're in charge of the new garden project," Sophia argued. "Besides, I have a feeling your presence will be important." Before Emily could question further, they were interrupted by a commotion from the hallway. Victoria's raised voice echoed off the walls. "How could you do this, Edward?" she shouted, bursting into the office without ceremony. Her eyes flashed when she saw Emily. "And you! You stole my project!" "Victoria, calm down." Mr. Edward stepped in right behind her, his voice firm. "No one stole anything." The project had serious flaws, and Emily identified them. "Flaws?" Victoria laughed bitterly. "Since when does some unqualified little nobody know more than a professional trained in New York?" The silence that followed was heavy. Emily felt. The blood rushed to her cheeks, a mix of shame and indignation overwhelming her. "Maybe," she began, her trembling voice gaining strength, "it's precisely because I don't have traditional training that I could see the project with fresh eyes. Sometimes you need a new perspective to see what's right in front of you." Victoria stared at her, momentarily speechless. It was Nathan who broke the stalemate, entering the room. "Vicky," he called softly, "let's talk somewhere else, please." For a moment it seemed Victoria would protest, but something in Nathan's gaze made her hesitate. With one last furious look at Emily, she left the room, followed by Nathan. Mr. Edward sighed heavily. Emily, Sophia, I apologize for that scene. And Emily, don't let her words shake you. You earned your place here on your own merit. When they were alone again, Sophia turned to Emily. Now, do you understand why you need to be at the dinner? There's much more at stake than just a garden project. Emily nodded slowly, the reality of the situation settling over her. What had begun as an opportunity to fulfill her dream was turning into something much larger, involving stories and conflicts that predated her arrival at the mansion. That night, lying in bed, Emily reflected on the whirlwind of events from the past weeks. The garden, which had once been just a distant dream, was now in her hands to transform. But with that responsibility came complications she could never have anticipated. As sleep enveloped her, Emily couldn't imagine that the next day's dinner would be just the beginning of a series of revelations that would shake the foundations not only of the garden, but of the entire Harrington family. Saturday dawned with an air of anticipation in the Harrington mansion. The staff rushed back and forth, polishing silverware, arranging flowers, and preparing the grand dinner. Emily, despite her new position, couldn't stay idle and found herself helping with the preparations, much to Margaret's thinly veiled displeasure. "Darling, you don't need to do this," Eleanor remarked upon finding her arranging flower displays in the dining room. "You're our landscaper now, not a maid." Emily smiled sheepishly. "Force of habit, Ma'am. Besides, I want everything to be perfect for tonight." Eleanor studied her for a moment, a glint of approval in her eyes. "Well, since you're here, why not incorporate some of your garden ideas into the arrangements? It'll be a charming preview of your project." Excited by the idea, Emily spent the next few hours working on the arrangements, weaving in elements that reflected her vision for the new garden. Small details that told a story, native flowers mixed with exotic species representing the fusion of tradition and innovation. As the afternoon wore on, the mansion took on an air of elegance and mystery. Soft lights illuminated the path from the garden to the main entrance, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Nathan found Emily putting the finishing touches on one of the arrangements. "Wow," he exclaimed, admiring her work. "If the garden turns out half as beautiful as these, it'll be spectacular." Emily blushed at the compliment. "Thank you, I'm a little nervous about this dinner, to be honest." Nathan chuckled softly. "Don't worry, you'll do great. Besides," he added, lowering his voice, "I suspect I won't be the only one uncomfortable at the table tonight." Before Emily could question what he meant, Sophia appeared carrying a box. "Emily, so glad I found you. Come with me, I need your help." Intrigued, Emily followed Sophia to her room. Inside the box was a stunning emerald green dress. "Sophia, this is for you," Sophia finished with a smile. "I can't let our talented landscaper show up to dinner in uniform, can I?" Touched and a bit overwhelmed, Emily accepted the gift. As she got ready, she couldn't help but think about how much her life had changed in such a short time. At exactly 8 p.m., the doorbell announced the arrival of the Blackwoods. From the top of the stairs, Emily watched the scene unfold in the entryway. Victoria entered first, dazzling in a red dress that contrasted dramatically with her pale skin. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, followed, imposing figures who exuded power and influence. "Edward, Eleanor," Mr. Blackwood greeted warmly. "It's been too long." "Far too long, Charles," Edward replied, but Emily noticed an underlying tension in his voice. Victoria's eyes scanned the room, lingering for a moment on the floral arrangements. Her face hardened as she recognized Emily's style. As everyone moved toward the dining room, Emily descended the stairs, feeling like an intruder in her own skin in the elegant dress. Nathan met her at the foot of the stairs, offering his arm with an encouraging smile. "You look beautiful," he whispered, guiding her into the room. The reaction to Emily's entrance was mixed. Eleanor smiled approvingly, while Mr. Edward nodded in acknowledgement. The Blackwoods seemed surprised, and Victoria looked as if she had just swallowed something particularly unpleasant. "Ah, let me introduce you," Edward said. "This is Emily, our new landscaper. She's developing a groundbreaking project for our garden." "Landscaper?" Mrs. Blackwood questioned, glancing from Emily to Victoria. "I thought, Victoria—" "There's been a change of plans," Eleanor interjected, smoothly. Emily brought a new perspective that delighted us. The dinner continued as a delicate dance of polite conversation and veiled tensions. Emily, seated between Nathan and Sophia, felt as if she were walking through a minefield. It was during dessert that things began to unravel. "So, Nathan," Mr. Blackwood began, his tone deceptively casual, "I heard you're considering expanding the family business into the tech sector." Nathan nodded cautiously. "Yes, we're exploring some possibilities." "Interesting," Mr. Blackwood continued. "You know, Victoria recently made some valuable contacts in that field in New York. Perhaps the two of you could collaborate." The silence that followed was deafening. Emily could feel the tension radiating from Nathan. "Dad," Victoria interjected, her voice saccharine, "I'm sure Nathan has his own contacts. After all, he's always been so independent." The double meaning was clear, and Emily saw Nathan grip his napkin tightly. "Actually," Sophia suddenly spoke up, "Emily has some fascinating ideas about integrating sustainable technology into the garden project. Isn't that right, Emily?" Caught off guard, Emily stammered for a moment before regaining her composure. "Yes, I believe we can use smart irrigation systems and solar energy to create a space that's not only beautiful, but also efficient and environmentally responsible." The conversation shifted to the garden project, with Emily explaining her ideas with growing confidence. She noticed genuine interest in Mr. Blackwood's eyes and even a flicker of reluctant respect from Victoria. When dinner finally ended and the guests withdrew, Emily let out a sigh of relief. She was about to leave when Nathan called her aside to a discreet corner. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You were amazing tonight." "I just talked about the project," Emily replied, confused. Nathan smiled, a sad and knowing smile. "Sometimes talking about the future is the best way to escape the past." Before Emily could ask what he meant, Sophia joined them, her face serious. "You two need to come with me," she said urgently. "I found something in Grandpa's old office that you need to see." Intrigued and a little apprehensive, Emily and Nathan followed Sophia through the halls of the mansion, unaware they were about to uncover secrets that would change the course of their lives forever. Grandpa Harrington's old office was in a rarely used wing of the mansion. As they followed Sophia through the dark corridors, Emily felt the weight of history around her. Portraits of ancestors seemed to watch them with enigmatic gazes, as if they knew the secrets about to be revealed. Sophia unlocked the door with an old key, and the three stepped into a space frozen in time. The air was thick with dust and memories. "What exactly are we looking for, Sophia?" Nathan asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and unease. Sophia didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to a bookshelf and, after a moment's hesitation, pulled out a thick volume. With a soft click, the shelf moved, revealing a hidden passage. "My God," Emily whispered, her eyes wide with shock. "I always knew there was more to this house than met the eye," Nathan murmured, a wry smile on his lips. Sophia led them down a narrow hallway that opened into a small room. In the center stood a table covered in old documents and a safe that appeared untouched for decades. "I stumbled upon this last week," Sophia explained, picking up a stack of papers. "They're letters, contracts, and, well, you need to see for yourselves." As Nathan and Emily examined the documents, expressions of shock and understanding flickered across their faces. "This can't be possible," Nathan muttered, his voice trembling slightly. Emily, confused, looked from one sibling to the other. "What's going on? What are these papers?" Sophia took a deep breath before answering. "They're records of an old partnership between the Harrington and Blackwood families, a partnership that was dissolved under troubled circumstances." "Troubled is an understatement," Nathan cut in, his voice thick with emotion. "According to this, our grandfather and Victoria's grandfather were business partners. They started together, built an empire. But then there was a betrayal," Sophia finished softly. "Grandfather Blackwood tried to seize full control of the company using questionable." Emily absorbed every word, the puzzle pieces starting to fall into place. "Is that why there's so much tension between the families?" But what does this have to do with the garden? Nathan picked up another document, an old map of the estate. The garden was our grandfather's favorite project. He saw it as a symbol of partnership, of shared growth. When everything fell apart, he buried more than just bad memories there. What? Emily asked, her professional curiosity blending with the tension of the moment. Sophia opened the safe, revealing an aged metal box. Inside was an ornate key and a surprisingly modern flash drive. Our grandfather was smarter than we thought, Sophia said with a sad smile. He knew we'd need this information someday. The flash drive contains all the digitized records of the old partnership, proof of the Blackwood grandfather's actions, and instructions. Instructions? Emily and Nathan asked in unison. To find something hidden in the garden, Sophia replied, her gaze intense. Something that could change everything. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with implications. Emily studied the old map, her landscaper's mind already mapping out possibilities. That's why you insisted I be at dinner, Emily concluded, looking at Sophia. You knew you'd need me to decipher this. Sophia nodded. The garden project isn't just about beautifying the estate, Emily. It's about unearthing the truth and perhaps righting past wrongs. Nathan, who had been quiet, finally spoke. This explains so much. Mother's insistence on keeping ties with the Blackwoods, the pressure for Victoria and me to... He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. Emily could see the pain in his eyes, finally understanding the complexity of his relationship with Victoria. What do we do now? Emily asked, feeling the weight of responsibility that had just landed on her shoulders. Now, Sophia answered, her voice steady, we redesign the garden. But not just on the surface. We're going to dig into the past. Emily, both literally and figuratively. Nathan stood up, a new determination on his face. We can't tell anyone about this, not even our parents, not until we know exactly what we're dealing with. Emily nodded, her mind already working through the implications for her project. I'll need to adjust some of my original plans, integrate the search without raising suspicions. Can you do that? Sophia asked, a touch of concern in her voice. Emily looked at the ancient map, the mysterious key, and the flash drive containing decades-old secrets. A determined smile formed on her lips. I can do more than that, she replied. I can turn this garden into a work of art that tells a story, the true story of the Harrington and Blackwood families. As they left the secret office, each carrying a piece of the evidence, Emily felt she was stepping into a new chapter of her life. What had started as a simple landscaping project had turned into a mission to uncover the truth. Outside, the garden waited, its shadows hiding long-buried secrets. And Emily, armed with her knowledge, her passion, and now a greater purpose, was ready to unravel every one of them. The days following the discovery in Grandfather Harrington's office were a whirlwind of activity and suppressed emotions for Emily. Each morning she woke with a mix of excitement and apprehension, knowing her work in the garden now carried a far deeper meaning than simply creating a beautiful green space. On her drafting board, the designs for the new garden came to life, each stroke carefully planned to conceal a secondary purpose. Lush flower beds that, viewed from above, formed a pattern that only made sense when compared to the ancient map. Winding paths that secretly marked potential excavation points. A hedge maze that was, in fact, a visual code for the information on the flash drive. Impressive, Nathan remarked one afternoon, looking over Emily's shoulder as she worked. No one would ever suspect there's so much hidden in these designs. Emily smiled, a mix of pride and nervousness in her expression. Thanks. I just hope it's enough to fool sharper eyes, like Victoria's. The mention of Victoria's name cast a shadow over Nathan's face. Speaking of which, he said, lowering his voice, she's been calling non-stop. Apparently, her parents are pushing for a closer collaboration between our families. Emily felt an uncomfortable twinge in her chest, but chose to ignore it. And what did you tell her? The truth, Nathan replied with a sigh, that we're focused on the garden project for now, but Emily, we can't put this off forever. At some point, we'll have to confront the Blackwoods with what we've discovered. Before Emily could respond, Sophia walked into the office, carrying a stack of old books. "I found a few more clues," she announced, spreading the volumes across the table. "Our grandfather's diaries." He was meticulous in his notes. The three of them leaned over the diaries, absorbing every detail, every veiled mention that might lead to what was hidden in the garden. "Look at this," Sophia pointed to a passage. "The heart of the garden holds more than beauty. Beneath the black rose lies the truth that cannot wither." "Black rose?" Emily frowned. "There's no such thing as a natural black rose." "Exactly," Nathan agreed, a glint of understanding in his eyes. "It's a code. It must refer to some specific landmark in the old garden." Emily quickly flipped through her sketchbook, stopping at a detailed drawing of the garden's center. "Here," she pointed to a circle in the middle of an elaborate rosebush design. "I planned a fountain for this spot, but now that I think about it, that's exactly where the old sundial used to be." "The sundial!" Sophia exclaimed. "Of course, I remember it from my childhood. It had a rose carved into the base." "That looked black at sunset," Nathan finished, the memory coming back vividly. The excitement of the discovery was interrupted by a firm knock at the door. The three froze, exchanging uneasy glances, before Nathan called out a hesitant, "Come in." Eleanor Harrington stepped inside, her sharp gaze sweeping over the scene before her. The scattered books, the garden sketches, the tense faces of her children and Emily. "What an interesting meeting," she remarked, her voice neutral but her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just a few ideas for the project, Mom," Sophia replied quickly, trying to sound casual. Eleanor raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "I see. Well, since you're all here, I have an announcement to make." The trio waited in tense silence as Eleanor paused for dramatic effect. "The Blackwoods have invited us to dinner at their mansion next weekend to discuss the future of our families." The weight of those words crashed over them like an avalanche. Nathan was the first to recover. "Mom, I don't think that's a good idea, with the garden project underway." "This isn't a request, Nathan," Eleanor interrupted, her voice sharp now. "It's an obligation. Years of history between our families can't be ignored over a landscaping project." Her eyes landed on Emily, who felt as though she were being assessed and judged in a single glance. "Emily, dear," Eleanor continued, her tone artificially softening, "you're invited as well, of course. After all, your work on the garden is of interest to both families." With that, Eleanor withdrew, leaving behind a silence thick with tension. "This complicates things," Sophia murmured, breaking the quiet. Nathan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "We need to speed up our search. We can't go to that dinner without knowing exactly what we're up against." Emily looked at her sketches, the scattered journals, and then at Sophia and Nathan's worried faces. A fierce determination ignited within her. "Then let's not waste time," she declared, grabbing her sketchbook. "Tonight, we start digging." As the sun set over the Harrington mansion, casting long shadows across the garden, Emily, Nathan, and Sophia prepared for a night that could change the course of their lives. Armed with flashlights, shovels, and Emily's coded map, they ventured into the heart of the garden, ready to unearth long-buried secrets. What they didn't know was that other eyes watched their movements from the shadows, eyes that had their own plans for the future of the Harrington and Blackwood families. Night fell over the Harrington mansion, like a velvet black cloak, dotted by the soft glow of light from the windows. In the garden, three figures moved stealthily, their shadows dancing in the flickering lantern light. Emily checked her coded map one last time before pointing to a specific spot. "Here," she whispered, "where the old sundial used to be." Nathan and Sophia exchanged tense glances before they began to dig. The sound of shovels cutting through the earth seemed deafening in the silence of the night, making the three of them constantly glance over their shoulders, fearing they might be discovered. After what felt like an eternity, Nathan's shovel hit something solid. "I've found something," he whispered, his voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. Carefully they cleared the dirt around the object, revealing a small metal box, weathered by time, but still intact. Sophia pulled out the ornate key they had, found in the secret office and, with trembling hands, inserted it into the lock. With a soft click, the box opened. "My God!" Emily gasped, staring at the contents. Inside the box lay a set of old documents, yellowed photographs, and a small object that glinted in the flashlight's beam, a golden pocket watch. "This is," Nathan began, his voice breaking with emotion. "Grandpa's watch," Sophia finished, lifting the object with reverence. He always said it was his most prized possession, but it vanished mysteriously years ago. Meanwhile, Emily was examining the documents with growing astonishment. "These are contracts, agreements! My God, this changes everything!" Before they could examine them further, a noise startled them. Lights flickered on in the mansion. "Quick!" Nathan whispered urgently. "We have to get out of here." In a silent rush, the three gathered their belongings and the precious box, hastily covering the hole they had dug. They barely had time to hide behind a cluster of bushes when they saw Edward Harrington stepping into the garden, his face a mask of concern. "Are you sure you heard something, Eleanor?" His voice carried a note of irritation. "Absolutely." Eleanor's voice sounded close. It sounded like someone was digging. Emily's heart pounded so loudly she feared it might give them away. Beside her, Nathan held his breath, while Sophia clutched the box tightly to her chest. Edward walked through the garden, his footsteps echoing in the night. For an agonizing moment he stopped near their hiding spot, and Emily could swear he was looking right at them. But then, with a sigh, he turned away. "There's nothing here, Eleanor. Probably just some animal." When the footsteps faded and the lights of the mansion finally turned off, the three let out a breath they didn't even realize they were holding. "That was too close," Nathan murmured, running a nervous hand through his hair. "We need to examine this somewhere safe," Sophia declared, still clutching the box. Emily nodded, her mind racing. "My room. It's the least likely to be checked." Silently, they slipped back into the mansion, every shadow seeming like a potential threat. Once safely inside Emily's modest bedroom, they spread the contents of the box across the bed. The next few hours were spent in a frenzy of shocking discoveries and revelations. The documents detailed not only the original partnership between the Harrington and Blackwood families, but also the manipulations and betrayals that led to its dissolution. "Look at this," Emily pointed to a specific contract. "According to this document, the property, where the garden is located, actually belongs equally to both families. That explains the Blackwoods' sudden interest in the garden project," Nathan muttered, his expression dark. Sophia, who had been examining the pocket watch, let out a surprised gasp. "There's something engraved inside, a date and coordinates." The three leaned over the watch, studying the tiny inscription. "These are coordinates for the garden," Emily concluded, comparing them to her maps. "And the date is exactly 1 week from today." "The day of the dinner at the Blackwood mansion," Nathan added, his voice heavy with meaning. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications of their discoveries sank in. "What do we do now?" Emily asked, her voice small in the face of the situation's magnitude. Nathan stood up, fierce determination in his eyes. "We stick to the plan. Emily, you need to speed up the garden project. We have to be ready before that dinner." Sophia nodded, adding, "Meanwhile, I'll dig deeper into these documents. There's more here than we're seeing at first glance." Emily looked at the two siblings, feeling the weight of the responsibility they shared. "What about your parents? Shouldn't we tell them?" Nathan and Sophia exchanged hesitant glances. "Not yet," Nathan decided. "Not until we have the full story." As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in rosy hues, the three made a silent pact. The garden was no longer just a landscaping project. It was the battleground where the past and future of two families would be decided. Emily looked out the window at the vast garden that now held so many secrets. Somewhere out there, buried beneath layers of soil and lies, was the key to unraveling the entire mystery, and she was determined to find it no matter the cost. What she didn't know was that other players were about to enter the game, each with their own agendas and secrets. The Harringtons' garden was about to become the stage for a battle that went far beyond plants and flowers. a battle for truth, redemption, and perhaps even love. The days following the discovery of the box were a whirlwind of frantic activity and mounting tension at the Harrington mansion. Emily, determined to complete the garden project before the fateful dinner, worked tirelessly from dawn till dusk. Her once soft hands now bore calluses, marks of her intense labor and dedication. Nathan and Sophia, meanwhile, delved deep into the uncovered documents, unraveling a complex web of agreements, betrayals, and family secrets spanning generations. A particularly hot afternoon, as Emily supervised the planting of a row of jasmine, she noticed Victoria approaching. Her heart raced, torn between apprehension and an inevitable curiosity. "Impressive," Victoria remarked, her tone wavering between genuine admiration and something more dangerous. "You truly have talent, Emily, though I wonder if you really understand the magnitude of what you're doing here." Emily straightened her back, meeting Victoria's piercing gaze. "I believe I understand perfectly, Mrs. Blackwood. This garden is more than plants and flowers. It's history, it's legacy." An enigmatic smile played on Victoria's lips. "History and legacy indeed. But do you know whose legacy this truly is?" Before Emily could respond, Nathan appeared as if he'd sensed the tension in the air. "Victoria," he greeted, his voice controlled, "I didn't know you'd be visiting today." "Oh, Nathan," Victoria smiled, all charm now. "I was just stopping by to see how the project is progressing. After all, our families have a shared interest in this garden, don't we?" The look they exchanged was loaded with hidden meanings, years of unspoken history hanging between them. Emily felt like an intruder, watching a play whose script she didn't know. "The project is progressing very well, thanks to Emily," Nathan replied firmly, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. The gesture didn't go unnoticed by Victoria, whose eyes briefly flashed. Of course, Victoria agreed softly. "Well, I won't disturb you any longer. Keep up the good work. I can't wait to see the final result at dinner." With one last piercing look, Victoria walked away, leaving behind an almost palpable trail of tension. "She knows something," Emily murmured, as soon as Victoria was out of earshot. Nathan nodded grimly. "The Blackwoods have always known more than they let on. That's why we need to stay one step ahead." That night, gathered in Emily's room, which had become their unofficial headquarters, the three discussed their latest findings. "I found something interesting in Grandpa's diaries," Sophia began, opening a worn notebook. Apparently, the garden wasn't just a symbol of the family's partnership. It was literally the heart of a secret agreement. "What kind of agreement?" Emily asked, leaning forward with interest. "An agreement that divided not just the property but also—" Sophia hesitated, glancing at Nathan before continuing. "Control over a revolutionary discovery." Nathan frowned. "What discovery?" "I'm not entirely sure," Sophia admitted. "Grandpa was cautious in his writings, but from what I gathered, it was something related to a new agricultural technology, something that could be a game-changer for large-scale food production." A shiver ran down Emily's spine. "And it's hidden somewhere in the garden?" "I believe." So Sophia nodded. "The coordinates on the watch, I think they lead not just to more documents, but possibly to a prototype or blueprints of this technology." Nathan stood up, pacing nervously around the small room. "That explains everything. The renewed interest of the Blackwoods, our mother's insistence on keeping the ties between the families, and the pressure for you and Victoria to grow closer," Emily added softly, feeling a pang in her chest she chose to ignore. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken implications. Finally, Nathan turned to them, his expression resolute. "We need to find that technology before dinner. It's our only chance to negotiate on equal footing with the Blackwoods." Emily bit her lip, thoughtful. "The coordinates point to the area where I'm planning the rose maze. I can speed up that part of the project, use the excavation as cover for our search." Sophia nodded eagerly. "Perfect. And in the meantime, I'll keep researching. There's more in Grandpa's journals, I'm sure of it." As they finalized their plans, Emily couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. The garden she'd been hired to create had turned into something far greater, a chessboard where the past and future of two powerful families would be decided. The next morning, as she began work on the rose maze, Emily felt the weight of someone's gaze on her. Looking up, she saw Eleanor Harrington watching her from the second-floor window, her expression unreadable. For a fleeting moment, Emily wondered if she was digging her own grave alongside the secrets of the Harringtons and Blackwoods. But then, remembering Nathan and Sophia's trust, the importance of what they were doing, she gripped her shovel with renewed determination. The garden held secrets, yes, and Emily was determined to unearth them, no matter the cost. Little did she know the real challenge was yet to come, and before the final secret was revealed, loyalties would be tested, hearts would be broken, and the Harringtons' garden would become the stage for a battle no one could have foreseen. The day of the dinner at the Blackwood mansion dawned with an air of tense anticipation. Emily woke before sunrise, her heart racing with the awareness of what lay ahead. She dressed quickly and headed to the garden, determined to make one final check before the crucial events unfolded. The rose maze, now nearly complete, stretched before her like a living riddle. Every curve, every crossroads had been meticulously planned, not just for beauty but to conceal the secrets she, Nathan, and Sophia had uncovered. At the maze's center, camouflaged by an elaborate floral arrangement, was the area matching the coordinates from old Mr. Harrington's clock. "It's incredible how you've transformed this place," Nathan's voice startled her. He approached, the first rays of morning sunlight illuminating his tired but determined face. Emily smiled, feeling that familiar warmth his presence always brought. "Thank you. I just hope it's enough for—" Her voice faltered, the weight of what they were about to do pressing down on her. Nathan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Everything will be fine, Emily. Thanks to you, we have a chance to finally uncover the truth and, who knows, fix the mistakes of the past." Before Emily could respond, Sophia joined them, carrying a thick folder. "Good morning, conspirators," she joked, but her voice betrayed the tension they all felt. "I spent the night reviewing the last documents. I think I've finally put all the pieces together." The three of them headed to a bench hidden among the trees, away from prying eyes. Sophia opened the folder, revealing a series of documents, old photos and notes. "What our grandfather and Victoria's grandfather discovered," she began quietly, "was a formula for a revolutionary fertilizer, something that could turn barren land into fertile fields, multiplying food production on a global scale." "My God," Emily gasped, immediately grasping the impact of such a discovery. Nathan frowned. "But why keep it a secret? Why not share it with the world?" Sophia sighed. "Because they disagreed on how to use this technology. Our grandfather wanted to make it freely available to fight world hunger. Victoria's grandfather saw an opportunity to build a financial empire." "And that's when the partnership fell." "Apart," Emily concluded, the pieces clicking into place in her mind. Sophia nodded. "Exactly. Our grandfather hid the formula and prototypes here in the garden, using a system of codes and clues that only someone with intimate knowledge of the place could decipher." "Someone like you, Emily," Nathan added softly, his gaze full of admiration. Emily felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "So what do we do now? Dig everything up before dinner?" Nathan shook his head. "That would be too risky. The Blackwoods are probably watching us. No, our best chance is during dinner. While everyone is distracted at their mansion, one of us can come back here and retrieve the formula." "I'll do it," Emily volunteered immediately. "I know the garden better than anyone. I can find the exact spot quickly." Sophia hesitated. "It's dangerous, Emily, if you get caught." "It's our only option," Emily insisted. "You two need to be at the dinner to keep up appearances. I can slip away unnoticed." After a moment of silent debate, Nathan and Sophia reluctantly agreed. The three spent the next hour refining the details of the plan, aware that the future of both families, and potentially much more, depended on its success. As the day progressed, the Harrington mansion buzzed with preparations for the dinner. Emily watched it all with a mix of fascination and apprehension, knowing that behind the facade of cordiality, powerful forces were at play. When it was finally time to leave for the Blackwood mansion, Emily felt her heart race. Dressed in an elegant green gown, a deliberate choice to help her blend into the garden later, she joined the Harrington family in the limousine. The ride was tense, filled only with superficial conversation. Emily noticed how Eleanor seemed particularly anxious, her eyes repeatedly darting toward Nathan with unspoken expectation. Upon arriving at the imposing Blackwood mansion, they were greeted by Victoria, stunning in a red dress that seemed to defy nature itself. Her eyes met Emily's for a moment, an enigmatic smile playing on her lips. "Welcome," she greeted, her melodious voice laced with irony. "How lovely that you could make it. I'm sure this will be a night to remember." As they were led inside, Emily exchanged one last meaningful glance with Nathan and Sophia. The plan was in motion. Now everything depended on her. What none of them realized was that other players were about to enter the game, and before the night was over, secrets would be revealed, alliances tested, and the fate of two families, and possibly the world, would be decided within the confines of a garden that held more than just flowers and shadows. The dinner at the Blackwood mansion was a masterpiece of tension disguised as civility. Crystal clinked, silverware glided over fine china, and carefully crafted conversations floated above the table like a thick fog, masking each participant's true intentions. Emily watched it all with sharp eyes, her heart pounding as she waited for the right moment to execute the plan. Nathan, seated to her right, maintained a calm facade, though she could sense the tension in his every move. Sophia, across the table, cast furtive glances at the clock, silently counting down the minutes. Victoria, the perfect hostess, guided the conversation with feline grace, her eyes occasionally meeting Emily's with a glint of challenge. "So, Emily," she began, her voice sweet as poisoned honey, "tell us more about your inspirations for the Harringtons' garden. It must be fascinating to work on a project with so much history." Emily felt every eye turned toward her. Swallowing hard, she replied with a confidence she didn't truly feel. "The Harringtons' garden is one of a kind. Every flower bed, every path tells a story. My goal is simply to highlight the beauty that's already there." "Beauty and secrets, isn't that right?" Mr. Blackwood interjected, his tone seemingly casual but his eyes sharp. "Old gardens often hold more than just flowers." A tense silence fell over the table. It was Eleanor who broke it, her voice strained. "Charles, darling, surely this isn't the time for business. We're here to celebrate the friendship between our families." "Friendship?" Mrs. Blackwood laughed softly, but there was a hardness in her eyes. "That's an interesting word to describe our shared history." Nathan cleared his throat, clearly trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. "Victoria, I heard you've been working on some innovative projects. Perhaps we could discuss future collaborations." The look Victoria gave Nathan was loaded with hidden meaning. Nathan, always the diplomat, but you know as well as I do that the future of our families depends on far more than just superficial collaborations. It was then that Emily realized it was time to act. With an almost imperceptible nod to Sophia, she rose gracefully. "Excuse me, I need to step away for a moment." As she walked away from the table, Emily could feel the weight of their gazes on her. Leaving the Blackwood mansion, she slipped through the shadows, her heart pounding as she made her way to the Harrington garden. The rose maze had never seemed so intimidating as it did that night. Emily navigated its twists with determination, guided by memory and the mental map she'd created. At the center, exactly where the coordinates indicated, she began digging frantically. Minutes that felt like hours passed before her trembling hands touched something solid. With her heart in her throat, Emily unearthed a metal box, similar to the one they'd found before, but larger. She barely had time to examine her discovery when she heard footsteps approaching. Whirling around, she found herself face to face with Victoria. "I knew it," Victoria declared, her eyes blazing with a mix of triumph and fury. "You're nothing but a thief, after all." "It's not what you think," Emily began, but was interrupted by the arrival of more people. Nathan, Sophia, the Harringtons, and the Blackwoods emerged from the shadows of the maze, forming a tense circle around them. "What's going on here?" Mr. Blackwood demanded, his gaze shifting between Emily and the box in her hands. It was Edward Harrington who stepped forward, his expression a mask of determination. "No more secrets. It's time for the truth to come out." With trembling hands, Emily opened the box. Inside were documents, complex chemical formulas, and a small vial containing an amber liquid. "The formula," Eleanor gasped, recognition shining in her eyes. "Not just a formula," Sophia interjected, her voice steady. "The solution to world hunger, our grandparents' true legacy." What followed was a flood of revelations. The full story of the partnership between the Harringtons and the Blackwoods, the groundbreaking discovery, the clash of ideals that led to their rift. Nathan and Sophia, with Emily's help, laid it all bare, leaving both families stunned. "You hid this for decades," Victoria accused, her voice shaking with emotion. "A secret that could have changed the world." "Out of fear," Edward replied, softly. "Fear of the power it held, fear of making the wrong choice." A heavy silence fell over the group, broken only by the soft rustling of roses in the wind. It was Emily who finally spoke, her voice filled with conviction. "We can't change the past, but we can shape the future. This discovery doesn't belong to one family or the other. It belongs to the world." Her words seemed to awaken something in everyone present. Slowly, expressions of shock and anger gave way to something else: understanding, remorse, and finally, hope. In the days and weeks that followed, a profound transformation took place. The Harrington and Blackwood families, guided by the vision of Emily, Nathan, and Sophia, joined forces to share the discovery with the world. The garden, once the stage for secrets and conflict, became a symbol of renewal and hope. Emily, gazing at the rose maze now in full bloom, couldn't help but smile. What had begun as a simple landscaping project had turned into a journey of discovery, redemption, and love. Because yes, amid all the secrets and revelations, something else had blossomed. A deep feeling between her and Nathan, nurtured by mutual trust and admiration. As the sun set over the garden, casting golden shadows over the roses, Emily felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself face to face with Nathan, his eyes shining with a mix of love and gratitude. "You made all of this possible," he said softly. "You transformed not just the garden, but our lives." Emily smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. "We did this together, all of us." And there, in the heart of the garden that had held so many secrets, they sealed their love with a kiss, promising a future as beautiful and hopeful as the roses surrounding them. The Harringtons' garden, once a maze of secrets, now bloomed as a testament to the power of truth, reconciliation, and love. And Emily, the young woman who had arrived as a mere maid, had become not just the architect of its beauty, but the catalyst for a change that would echo through generations. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the journey of Emily, Nathan, and Sophia has touched your hearts and inspired your minds. To continue exploring equally captivating stories, we've prepared a special playlist with narratives that defy fate and transform lives. Find it here by clicking the link on the left. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on the video. Every day we bring new stories that explore life's complexities, love, and the choices that shape our destiny. Share with us in the comments. What secrets do you think your own gardens, literally or metaphorically, might be hiding? Who knows, your story could be the next to inspire thousands. Until next time, when once again we'll dive together into the depths of the human heart, unraveling the mysteries around us and within each of us.